Regarding the Durrrr challenge, we've actually come to an agreement, but we're gonna wait until we get some hands in. We should actually play. I think that there's a pretty good chance we play 4,000 hands this month. I feel like I've said that like a million times, but this time I'm more sure than usual. So now I'm like 25% sure. Anyways, I actually do think based on our new agreement, he's got quite a bit of incentive to play. Right now, he doesn't want to disclose the deal until we have actually played some hands. If he doesn't do it if he doesn't play hands this September, I'm just probably gonna have to tell people what the deal is, because that's just like another mistake or another lack of commitment that he's shown. Again, he's got a lot of options of people who he could play. He can play in the Macau games. He gets into the good games in Macau, which are they're high stakes against people who are businessmen. So why would he want to play with me? The guy who just sits on his computer and grinds and plays, the top players that will actually give action. I see why he wouldn't play. He actually said in the forum that why would he play me when I've I've irritated him a couple of times, and he can play all these other games. Although I think doing that's it's against the spirit of the bet, I think, and I think even he recognizes it, and I think that he actually does want to make things right. I assume that there's some reluctance. He seems to think he can beat me. I'm convinced that he cannot, personally, but who knows? I guess I can't see the future. I've asked him if he wants to settle. I would be fine with taking a settlement. I kind of like him. Don't really want to bash him that much. He's been nice to me, but he doesn't want to settle. From what I can tell, he intends to play, but I'm not 100% sure. I sort of think part of me thinks that he might be just leading me on to buy time or whatever. But especially with the agreement we have now, I think that he almost has to play, or he's being really shady. Because with the agreement we have now, I will make money regardless. I have some faith, but I have some doubts as well that he'll honor the agreement. I'm not 100% sure, especially with his situation being as mysterious and complicated as it is. I think that I just hope that I think there's a good chance, but I'm not 100% sure in the situation. There's some chance I just get completely screwed over for millions or whatever, but I think that's unlikely. Well, yeah, my competitive drive has a lot to do with it. It's very good for me, just career-wise, just to play the challenge. I make lots of money from it, and it's good for my name or whatever. And there's just all kinds of incentives of why I want to complete it and why I want to push for it. Well, there's actually, there's actually something I read recently. It's very interesting. And it explains a lot of the behaviors it explains some of the behaviors that have occurred around this challenge. In particular, when faced with a sure thing instead of a gamble, you almost always take the sure thing, which isn't that relevant. But the other thing where if there's a gamble and instead of a sure loss, people almost always take the gamble, even though psychologically, or even though rationally, the equity of those two things is exactly the same. People almost always take the gamble, which explains his behavior, and it also explains why he might have been stalling, because he's gambling on what people will think, and the sure thing is that he loses a ton of money. So his behavior makes sense. He's got nothing to gain from this challenge at this point unless he beats me, which he even thinks is unlikely. But he just has a lot of stuff to lose. The only thing that he has to keep is what people think of him. Well, with Viffer, almost immediately following a challenge, I was stuck a little bit of money, and I wanted to bet more on it, as did my friend You're Not in Danger, Scott Palmer. He wanted to bet some money on it. He had no money on it at the time. Viffer was making posts on high stakes and L. He wanted to bet big on Tom, and Scott wanted to bet everything. And so I booked a bet with Viffer. I booked 20% cross book, and then a 50K side bet, my 50K to his 62.5K, and then I gave 10% of that crossbook to Scott. Unfortunately, I didn't really handle it that well because Durrrr was letting me better odds, right? And so, yeah, we booked that bet. He said, yeah, we have 10 days to pay, whatever. And then like recently right after like sometime around the time in Vegas, I was playing like this 2K, 4K game, and like Viffer had a piece because he had business with other guys that I had business with. I was paying him my piece, and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm not paying you for the Durrrr challenge. The hundreds of thousands he's about to owe after I paid him like 160,000 for his piece. And I tell him, well, then you're scamming me. And he's like, no, I'm fucking you. That's his language. He's saying like, well, you know, the DOJ was like an act of God, and like, you know, it's kind of like the baseball inning where, you know, like it's rain, there's a thunderstorm or whatever, and the baseball game's canceled, so it's all just a wash. And I'm like, well, Tom says it's still on, Tom still wants to play, you still owe the crossbook regardless of this fucking thunderstorm or whatever you want to call it. And like he just like won't agree with me, and he's like, I'll bet you on it. We bet with Heralibus on who's right. Almost immediately after we both say our agreements, he just gives me the bet and says, you're out of line, Viffer. Heralibus vulgaris. And then like I try to like get him to settle or whatever, and he just won't settle. And then I tried to deal with it over the World Series of Poker, and then he gets really annoyed and says we want to deal with it later, then eventually agrees, okay, fine, we've got action. He texts me that. And he says, I hope you lose a lot of money. I have the texts. And then recently, he goes on the 2+2 forum, and he posts his argument about act of God and whatever this nonsense is, and everyone disagrees with him. Everyone says what he's saying makes no sense. And he like doesn't really have an argument. And he won't listen to anyone, basically. And he's like claiming we don't have action. I posted the text message, hey, this is you texting me, we have action, even regardless of what you just said. And then he just, he like says, oh, well, I can fake a text message too. Here's me saying you cheated people and killed babies or whatever. He doesn't acknowledge that bet. And so at this point, I just think he must be trying to angle me, because no rational person acts like this. So basically, I think Viffer's a total scumbag. That's what I think. I think he's trying to angle me. I think that dealing with him like a rational person is not the way to go. And I think that no one should ever do business with him. I assume basically the way to go is ruin his business reputation forever so that he has to pay me, so that we can declare things resolved.